Hi, wonderful teachers. This is Nicola Canton from Colourful Keys. I'm a piano teacher in Dublin in Ireland and a blogger and the author of a book called The Piano Practice Physician's Handbook, and also the owner and the manager, I guess, of the Vibrant Music Teaching Library, which is a games library that you can now find at vibrantmusicteaching.com/membership. And I'm here today to talk to you about rote teaching. As you tune in, please do share this with other teachers, because I know that rote teaching is something that a lot of teachers have been curious about and maybe been a little bit nervous of trying. It might seem a little bit intimidating at first, okay? Rote teaching can be a little bit scary because you don't have the music in front of you. So what I want to share with you today is 5 top tips that I've learned from teaching pattern pieces and including rote teaching. First, just a little clarity. I know that some people can get confused by this term rote teaching. So what does it really mean? What it means to me and most people at the moment who are talking about it and who are proponents of it is teaching highly patterned pieces that sound more impressive and are hard to read but are easy to play. That's what we're really talking about most of the time when it comes to rote teaching, and that's why it's so fantastic, is you can get beginners all over the keys, right? They could be playing all sorts of things and it looks really, really impressive for the first few weeks of lessons or the first year of lessons, but it's actually really easy to play because of these highly patterned pieces. Okay, so tip number 1, don't talk too much. We're all so guilty of this. Do you talk too much when you teach? I find teachers can be really bad for just going on and on and on because we're so used to talking all day. But if you talk too much and over-explain things, you kind of get in the way of the real learning that can happen when you're teaching by rote. So I want you to think about just zipping it. Try even just playing it for your student and saying, "Can you try it?" They might be able to do it entirely by ear. And if you start explaining, "Oh, it went like this and it started on A flat, they don't know what an A flat is, blah, 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 blah," you might just be getting in the way. So that's tip number 1. Do it with as little words as you possibly can. Do it with as much pure demonstrating and just little cues and maybe singing or humming along instead of talking and explaining the pattern to them. Let them pick up on the pattern. You don't need to point it out unless they're not getting it. And then still use as few words as you possibly can to explain that pattern to them and to point it out. Tip number 2, common pitfalls. Notice them. Pay attention. As you teach more and more by rote, you'll start to see these common things that start coming up in these same pieces. So if you teach a piece a few times, the first time you don't know where you are and you just have to give it a bash. But after that, you can start to notice where it was that student had a little bit of trouble and what it was that finally made that bit twig. And then the next student, they might have trouble in the same spot, they might not, but start to notice the patterns yourself, right? The patterns in how students learn these things. It's really important that you pay attention to what it is that it's causing students to stumble and to fall down on these rote teaching pieces, so that next time you can head it off at the pass. You're not supposed to get it right on the first try. No one would, and it's absolutely fine. By the way, if you're tuning in, please do write your questions about rote teaching in the comments. I'd absolutely love to hear from you, and share this with other teacher friends that you have, so that everyone can learn more about rote teaching, because I think this is such a fantastic thing to add to your studio and add to your teaching toolkit. So tip number 3. So we've had don't talk too much. Stop talking so much, please. Notice the common pitfalls. And now we're going to talk about asking questions. and even warning about asking questions. So before I demonstrate a new rote teaching piece, I've learned to prompt my student that I am going to ask them about it afterwards, number one, because otherwise they can tune out or just think, oh, what a lovely piece. No, I want them to be paying attention. So before I play it, I'll say, I'm going to ask you some questions about this afterwards, so pay attention. And I might even cue them. I'm going to ask you about the dynamics. I'm going to ask you about whatever it is. And then afterwards I ask them lots of follow-up questions. At the beginning, this could be as simple as, did I play on the black keys or the white keys? Did I play loudly or softly? Did I move around a lot? Were there any bits that repeated? Just lots of probing questions so that they can notice these patterns themselves and start to get inside the piece and how it all works. The more questions you ask, the better, and continue to ask these questions as you work through. What was it I did next? Is that how it went? It doesn't have to be complicated, and like I say, you don't need to talk too much and over-explain everything. Ask questions instead. Okay, so tip number 4 for teaching by rote, using rote pattern pieces, is to use crutches. Use all the crutches in the world, right? These aren't cheating. These are part of rote teaching. So play along with your student in unison, an octave higher or lower, to help them. Sing with them. Sing the words. Come up with silly words that tell them what to do, like 1, 2, 1, 2, going up, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's the end. That's what I sing with Charlie Chipmunk from Piano Safari. Any little tricks that you can come up with, or you can have your student go for a ride along. So that's where I play and their hand goes on top and they ride along with me. And that way they're getting the feel for it. This is really useful in Hungry Herbie Hippo from Piano Safari because they're crossing over the hands and stuff. So it's good to get a feel for that. Use any trick that you think will work and don't be afraid that this is some kind of crutch. It's not. You don't have anything to read. So they need these cues to build it up and increase their memory and let them learn the piece. You need to give them help, and as much help as you like. There's no cheating when it comes to rote teaching, at least I don't think so. And tip number 5 is to repeat. That sounds kind of obvious, right? But you need to repeat and repeat and repeat, and not just in a row. That's the main thing. That's the key. When I teach a piece by rote, especially if it's quite a challenging one or it's going to be difficult for them to remember, what I do is I teach it to them at the start of the lesson, because before I've even heard the practice stuff, if it's new, I teach it at the start of the lesson. Do some of the practice stuff, come back to it, do another thing, come back to it, and so on and so forth, so that you've revisited it with breaks, interleaved practice, right? With breaks throughout the lesson. This makes it so much more reliable makes it so much more likely that they're going to be able to recall that at home if they've practiced recalling it. Not just practice it, but practice recalling it, practice remembering it. And if they don't remember it next week, no problem. Repeat it, start the whole process again. That's what rote teaching is all about sometimes, and that's okay. If they forget it, no problem. It's going to be easier to teach it to them the next time. There will be something in the back of their head. So those are my 5 top tips for rote teaching. We got, don't talk too much, okay? Stop talking so much. Common pitfalls, notice them, pay attention, and come up with little ways to help them across those hurdles. Ask lots of questions, just tons of questions all the time, lots and lots and lots of questions to help your student think about their piece. Use crutches liberally all over the place, anything you can think of, singing, mimicking, breaking it down into small parts, anything that makes it easier. That's your job. You have to make it as easy as possible. And repeat, repeat, repeat as many times as you possibly can within the same lesson, broken up by lots of other activities. So those are my 5 top tips for teaching by rote. I really hope that you'll give rote teaching a try. If you're looking for some great rote teaching resources, then I recommend Piano Safari, my absolute favorite. and also Repertoire by Rote, that's what it's called. Repertoire by Rote by Dennis Alexander and Amy Greer is another great source of rote teaching pieces, highly padded pieces that are perfect for beginners, all the way up until, late beginner, early intermediate in that book. So there's lots of them that you could intersperse with another book, a method book, as little ways to break that up and include some rote teaching pieces, because they really are so wonderful. You should see some of the looks of glee when students realize that they get to learn these pieces, because they're so highly patterned that they're easy, but they sound amazing. If you look up piano safari pieces, they sound so cool, and students absolutely love them. So I hope you'll give rote teaching a try. If you're looking for more info on this, I'll leave a comment with the post I wrote about Rote Teaching 101 a little while ago, where I've got these tips listed out and all written out for you. Okay, happy teaching and enjoy your Tuesday. Bye for now.